Kia ora koutou. We are Sam and Anna Barham from Balancing Monkey Games in Dunedin. This talk today is more or less a repeat of the talk that we delivered at Play by Play earlier in the year. Unfortunately, we weren't able to deliver it in person thanks to our flight being cancelled, thanks Wellington. So it's really nice to actually be here with you today and deliver this. So we're going to talk about... we were asked when we submitted this talk to NZGDC, they said, it was a half-hour talk at Play by Play. We're going to give you an hour. We'd like you to expand and give us some more examples. So that was some feedback that we received. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. We have added some extra things. So to set the scene, Balancing Monkey Games, we're a studio of 8 people. I think at the time that we're talking about this particular episode of difficult feedback, there were 9 of us on the team. We are a diverse team. More than half of us are women. There's a lot of neurodiversity in our team. We've got ADHD, autism, dyslexia represented amongst our people, which it's something that I'll talk about as we carry on.
So the game that we're working on, it's called Beyond These Stars. It's a city-building, chill, non-violent city-building game set on the back of a giant whale flying through space. And so it's a complex game. It's got a lot of systems that work in together and interrelate. So you can't really tell if the game is good until all of the systems come together. And so last year, towards the end of last year, we got to the point where we were like, we are now feature complete. Not, done and polished and ready for release, but we've got all of the systems in. So we submitted it to our publisher and then went on our Christmas break. Now, our publisher has a head of player experience, and this guy's job is to play their games and to decide if they're good or not. So Anna and I were out on a date 2 days before Christmas, and she went to the toilet, so I pulled out my phone and was like, I'm not just going to sit here staring at the wall. And I checked my email. I saw there was a message on Slack, so I go and I read it. Yeah.
In its current state, I actively fear for its success in the market.
That was a cool thing to read.
Yes. So this is an added piece, bonus psychology lesson time. This is me graduating with my master's in psychology, so you can trust that I know what I'm talking about. Why does critical feedback feel so bad? Why does your heart drop, your stomach sink? Why do you feel sick? Why do you feel attacked? Well, it's all because we have a monkey brain living inside our human brain, and the monkey brain is connected to the lizard brain. So the monkey brain knows that we are social animals, right? Our survival in this world depends on us belonging to a group. We can't survive alone. And so our measure for how well we fit in that group, partly it's what people say to us about us, partly it's how we feel about ourselves. And so if we receive criticism or if we start to feel bad about ourselves, that tells our monkey brain, oh shit, I no longer belong to the group. They might kick me out. I might die. And that sends the lizard brain into a state of panic. There's a tiger, run. So the stress response in the human brain, it sends out these hormones. I'm not going to go into great details. It was a long time ago. I did that master's, honestly. And so it does all these different things. It gets you ready to run. It expands your bronchioles in your chest. You get short of breath. You start sweating. You're getting ready to run. You're getting ready to dump your load, so sometimes your stomach gets really upset and your digestion will slow down. Your breathing speeds up. And so there's different ways, as you'll have heard of, fight, flight, flee. There's also fawn, tend and befriend, but I'm just going to talk about the top 3. So what does a human fight response look like? Sending an angry email back to your reviewer. What rubbish! You don't know what you're talking about. Bull! What does a freeze response look like? I'm just going to ignore that and keep doing what I'm doing. What does flee look like? I give up. I can't do this anymore. I'm going to quit and go and work in a cafe again. So how do you get your monkey brain, your lizard brain, to calm down to the point where you can start using your human thinking brain again? The first point, this one, you can actually test this out right now. Just take a deep breath. You'll have heard take a deep breath. The important part is let it out slowly. Because if you take your pulse, if you can find it somewhere, and you feel your pulse and you breathe in, your heart rate speeds up a fraction as you breathe in, your heart rate slows down as you breathe out. And now our bodies, they not only take information from the brain to the body, it also works in the other direction. So information from your body goes up to your brain and tells your brain how to feel, what to think. So if our heart rate is slowing down, then our brain is going, oh, heart rate's slowing down, I guess the tiger's gone. We can calm down. To get the lizard, that's the lizard brain. The monkey brain, the other part is if you've got that fight response, if you're antsy. So your body is full of adrenaline now, right? So you're ready to run away, you're ready to fight that tiger. The very best thing that you can do is use that. Use those chemicals, go for a run, go to the gym, do a workout, dance. Use some physical action to use up those adrenaline hormones and get yourself into a more settled state. If it's the monkey brain and you're just like, I'm going to die alone, then go and talk to people that care about you. Go and get a hug. Go and vent to someone that you can vent to safely. Just remind yourself that you're not alone in this. At the same time, you can be going through a grief experience. We had high expectations. We're like, we're going to release this game soon. It's going to be out in March 2025. No, it's not. So our hopes were dashed, our expectations were lost. We went through the grieving process. You've probably heard, I hope, of the 5 stages of grief. Now, I know that in real life experience, you don't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but which is why I put this slide up here. There's a few bunches of other responses, but I mean, for our experience, I think we experienced those 5 in order. Denial, nah, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Rubbish, it's a great game. Anger, what? Who does he think he is? We've worked so hard on this, there's no way. Bargaining, well, I mean, one of the 2 of these points might be right. Maybe if we just tweak a couple little things here and there, that might be okay. Depression, no. Actually, no. It's not going to work. And finally, acceptance. Okay, we are going to have to do the work. We're going to have to change this. So we made a plan. The plan. So this is what we're going to talk about today, is the plan that we made and how we worked through it. Number 1, prepare thoroughly. Number 2, yeet the creative director and producer. Our producer's in the audience here. Hi, Sarah. Carve out time. It's going to take time to deal with this. We can't just fix it overnight. Brainstorm. We need more ideas. Check in. Because this is an emotional process and we can't work well when we're... So we need to make sure that everyone in the team is feeling looked after, is feeling like we can do this. Design. Prototype, playtest. Those are bits that Sam's going to talk about in more depth. And then finally, check and fix your company culture. I'm going to talk about this last, but you do really need to do it first. So if you want to take a photo of the screen, this is the time to do it. This is the plan. Alrighty. So, prepare thoroughly. Excuse me a second. What we didn't tell you before was that the feedback that we received from this expert playtester was 9 paragraphs of critique. So we performed a thematic analysis. So my master's thesis involved qualitative analysis, going through experiential data, this kind of thing, and pulling themes out of it. So this is something that I quite enjoy doing. So we looked at these 9 paragraphs of feedback and were like, okay, what's the common themes? What are the things that he's coming out? And we came up with kind of 2 main themes that we could group just snippets under to clarify it for our team. And then we went back to the head of our publishing studio, Tim Bender from Hooded Horse, shout out to them, they're amazing, and said, can we please get some context for this when we bring it to the team? Simon Sinek says, start with why. For me, I always need to know the bigger picture before I can fit the little picture things in, or I won't remember it, it won't make sense to me. So it's good to have the bigger picture. So when we talked to Tim, he said, in the past, Hooded Horse had been much kinder, much gentler with their feedback, and then those games had not gone on to do so well. And then in more recent times, they've been much more rigorous, much more critical, much more constructive with their criticism. And I mean, we can all think of Hooded Horse games that have gone on to succeed massively. So this strategy is really working for them. He gave us specific examples, which obviously I can't share. So we put all these, our thematic analysis, plus the full feedback, and then the notes, the context from Tim at the top, and put them into a document for our team. And then we talked about how we were going to have a meeting to bring this to the team. So when everybody came back from Christmas, first day of the new year, this was what they were going to be faced with. So okay, we have to prepare really well. So we made guide notes for the meeting that we were going to have. And at this time, Sam and Sarah still had a week left of their leave. They'd started their leave a bit later, so they still had a week off. So it was just me taking this to the rest of the team. And then I had to tell people about it. So in our team, we have, because of the neurodiversity in the team, we have a written stand-up channel. We have a thread for each day where people write down the things that they're going to do, and then that's supposed to be filled out by 9:30 a.m. And then at 9:30 we have a video call with everybody, so to talk through it and discuss any blockers, etc. So this is, apart from the crossings out, this is what I put in the stand-up channel: reconciling, invoice HH, FBT, that's a tax thing. The big hairy feedback thing, I'll go into this at video stand-up and then write what I've said about it here. And then I talked about it. I told everyone that we were going to have a meeting a bit later on in the day. We set a time, gave people a chance to go away and have a cup of coffee and maybe a quick cigarette. I don't know, that's not my scene. And so when they came back, they were ready to look at it constructively and to look at all the stuff. It gave people a chance to read the document before we had the meeting. And we had a Miro board as well, getting ready to start the brainstorming. And Yeet, your creative director and producer. So by that, of course, if you don't have a separate creative director and producer in your company, yeet that part of your brain. So as this was the top of our meeting document, forget about what Sam would want, what he would want. Forget about the time constraints. Look at what we've actually made. Look at what's out in the public already. So what are we committed to? And then think about, what can we do? How can we solve these problems? I allowed time for questions, and then that meeting only lasted 30 minutes. We wrapped up. And then it was brainstorming time. Now, believe it or not, I'm an introvert. I expected that people would want to, huddle away at their screen and put things into the Miro board all by themselves in the corners. No. Immediately, our game designer, MJ, asked if she and Isaac could collaborate together. And I was like, of course. Go for it. So I gave her the conference mic so our remote team could join in on the call, and they all just started chattering away and putting things in the Miro board, moving it around, and I left them to it and got on with my taxes. Occasionally I would just pop back in and say, don't forget, this is blue sky thinking, just go nuts. Nothing is ruled out at this point. So this was the Miro board that they created. If you can actually kind of see the different. So each person had an area on the board, and you can kind of see, for example, this is Tom, our artist, so we've got lots of lovely visual references. This over here, this is MJ, our game designer, so we've got these neatly stacked hierarchies, and it's fantastic. This is me, my sad little 3 notes. This over here is Nina, our QA analyst and resident chaos monkey. They had a great time. So then I checked in. End of day 1, the mood is positive, pragmatic. This sucks, but we have to get it done. Day 2, the Miro board is really impressive. I tell the team I'm excited. Day 3, there's still new ideas being added. And Miriana, our game designer, takes the day to work from home so she can work uninterrupted to get her ideas in order and analyse what's up there and write in peace. So I made a spreadsheet just using a Google template to guide the discussion for the meeting on Friday that we were going to have to wrap it all up. And once again, I wrote out a plan for the meeting, put it in the Discord. There's no surprises for our autistic staff members, and it's written down for our ADHD staff members. They don't have to try and remember things. And so we had the meeting. We took all of the ideas on the spreadsheet, on the Miro board, put them into the spreadsheet, grouped them together, ranked them, marked them whether they were complete chaos or probably quite good ideas. And then that was going to go to Sam and Sarah. And over to Sam.
So at this point, I came back from my extra week of holiday, so did Sarah. Of course, I can't switch my brain off when I'm on holiday, so I had also been thinking about the feedback and thinking about what I would do. I tried not to, but can't not. So I came back with some ideas, but of course I knew that this process had been going on and I really wanted to find out what the team had came up with. So the first thing I did was I had a look at the Miro and the spreadsheet and put in a few things that I had thought of that weren't there, and I spent quite a bit of time, like I think it was basically the whole day, just clarifying ideas. What do you mean? Trying to make sure that I understood what people were meaning by their various ideas. Of course, some of the ideas were just clearly silly. That was fine. Having fun, no worries. And so I then took all of that work and wrote my own document, because I find I process well just by writing for myself. So I wrote a document of the workable ideas and my summary of them for my own processing. So I worked on that for a couple of days. I was working with the game designer so that she knew what I was thinking, I knew what she was thinking, and just working out what we thought we could actually do. And identifying the bits that were obviously too big or too scary or too experimental or too deep in terms of the code changes to just do, the things that we were going to have to try out first. And so then we did that for a couple of days. We, presented it to the team, got their feedback, adjusted the document round and round and round a few times, and moved on to prototypes. So we came up with, I think there were 8 prototypes that we wanted to try. So we decided each prototype was going to have its own separate branch and source control so they weren't accidentally colliding with each other. We decided we weren't going to prototype anything that was small or obvious. It's like, well, of course we're going to tweak that. Why do we need to try it out? It makes sense. But anything, like a fundamental change or a whole new system or whatever, we needed to do a prototype. Now, we've got 2 programmers. I'm mostly a programmer as well as being the creative director, and we've got Isaac, who's also our technical artist. Yay, small teams and multiple hats. And luckily, the 8 things that we wanted to prototype kind of split evenly between us. There were 4 things that were kind of in the areas that I was an expert on, 4 things that were in areas that he was an expert on. So we split them up like that and got to work. We completely ignored good coding. We were very clear with each other, we are not going to put this code into production. 1 or 2 we actually did, because the only way to try out the idea was to basically do it properly. So we basically did it properly and then used that in production, with, checking it. But it was we just got to get this thing operational enough that we can try it and see if it works. Once we thought it was good enough, we showed it to the game designer and QA so that they could test it out and give feedback and, go around a few times. And then we took it to our play testers. So in our public Discord, we've got some play testers, long-time fans that we've invited. And they were really excited. We'd been telling them that we were doing this process, that we were doing all this prototyping, and we needed their feedback. So the first couple of prototypes that we released, we did them one at a time. Here is one change. Try that out, please. We take that away. Here is a different change. Try that out, please. And it very quickly became clear if we did that 8 times, they were going to get bored and stop engaging, and we just wouldn't get feedback. So we then did a 3rd release, which was 3 prototypes all in together, and then we did one more release, which was all 8 prototypes all in together. Luckily, none of them were interrelating enough that the bad coding in one broke another one, so it was all fine. And I'm really glad we did the prototyping, because some of the ideas were great and some of them were terrible and would have been stupid, and we would have wasted heaps of time in production trying to make them work. Luckily, all of the things that we prototyped survived in some form or another. Some of them just required re-prototyping, or okay, we see what we did it wrong, we'll do it properly, or we'll do better for the production version, but we know the changes that we need to make. And some of us literally, okay, that was completely wrong, we've got to re-prototype some other kind of similar idea, which we did. So in terms of prototyping your ideas, if you've been given bad or difficult feedback that you're needing to work through, it was really good that we did these separately. We weren't trying to work them in together, and that we tested them separately. But then you don't try to give multiple different builds to play testers. It's just not going to work. And that last full build with all 8 prototypes, we sent to the same reviewer at Hooded Horse. Where, of course, we'd also sent him the document with all of the changes that we were going to make, which was we're going to go this small thing and that small thing and this medium thing and this prototype and that prototype. So he had all of that. And he'd already said, I think you're on the right track. But when you gave him the prototype, that's the feedback we got. So we were like, yes, we did it. We did a good job. He actually, we said he gave us 9 paragraphs of the critical feedback. We lost one. We got 8 paragraphs of all the things that were good and all the things that he was really glad that we'd changed and how he liked them. So we were super happy with that. We're like, yay, we know where we're going with this. So that's great. So we're now past that. We are a week away from a new feature complete back to the publisher to get maybe, hopefully, final approval to head towards release. We will find out. But what we did after that, so that was the week of the planning where I wasn't there, and then 2-3 weeks of prototyping. And then, of course, we broke all the work up into pieces. We did all the proper road mapping and time estimating, which turned out to be about as correct as you expect. And then we got on and did the work, and that's what we've been doing all year. And I just want to shout out, I know that many people don't have the luxury of a delay-friendly publisher. So we are very, very privileged that we've been able to do this. But it is still something that you can do if you're more time constrained. You just need to be more careful with how much time are you spending and what can you, what changes can you make and so on. But that is still, it's still doable. And just looking at my notes. So one thing that we did that was really important is we did actually document all of this. So we documented our original plan before we prototyped. We documented the ways in which we pivoted the prototypes and why. And that really helped both keeping all of the team on the same page, because they could go and reread the documentation when they forgot stuff. Mostly it was me rereading the documentation because I forgot things. And my game designer going, Sam, we already talked about this, it's in the documentation. But yeah, that being able to clearly communicate, being able to go back and reread why we pivoted something that we had thought was a good idea was very helpful as we were going on with the process.
Our game designer was also the one who modified this GIF for me. So, and finally, and as I said, this should be first, check and fix your company culture. So this was some work that we did a couple of years ago now. With the full team at Balancing Monkey Games. As the team had grown, I had become aware that we had no kind of guiding principles document, nothing that I could point people back to and say, this is the way we do things here. Because we have a really strong kind of culture and kaupapa and the way we do things, our values and our ideals, but we'd never codified that. So we took some time, was it 2023, I think? And it was quite a challenging process because we're talking about the things that are really core to our identities. We're talking about our values, our hopes for the future, the way we interact with other human beings, the way we want to be treated, and then bringing that together and like saying, do you agree? Which is a really vulnerable position to be in. But after, it took longer than I expected, as things always do, but eventually we came up with this set of principles that I'm really proud of. Again, we start with why. Our vision at Balancing Monkey Games is to become a shining example of best practice in the games we make, our business practices, and our impact on the local community. And so we could use this document because we had already done this work. We could point our staff back to this and say, this is what we believe in, so this is why it's really important that we do what we do. We want to be a shining example of best practice in the games we make. We make good games. So if somebody says our game is not good, we've got to do something about that. The font has changed. Dang it. We plan for sustainability. That's what we do in Balancing Monkey Games. That's a really core part of our values is sustainability. That's not just environmental sustainability. That's also in our workload and lifestyle. We have a 4-day work week, menstrual leave, etc. But we also plan for financial sustainability. And if our game is not going to sell, if our publisher fears for its success in the market, that's not a financially sustainable position to be in, so we need to fix it. So how do we do this? Well, we respect everybody. We are all always learning. So we're open to learn from our mistakes. We're open to learn from what people tell us because that's the only way that we can be great, that we can be a shining example of best practice. And we expect honesty. This can be really challenging. It's especially in a New Zealand culture to say, this is okay, but it's not good enough. We can do better. And so being able to say, I'm really proud of the work that you guys have done, but our product is not good enough. We need to make it better. That means that we can trust each other to tell each other the truth. We're going to get honest feedback from each other. We're going to give honest feedback. And then we can extend that to people that we know have our best interests at heart. We can trust our publisher. They've proven that they're trustworthy, and I know that's not always the case. And we expect to be able to trust people giving us feedback. So, really, as I said, you can't do the rest of the plan. You can't change everything if you're not willing to change, if you're not willing to learn, if you're not willing to say there are things that we need to do if we're going to meet our goals. And our goal is to survive as a company, to support our team, to fund their lifestyle. So we need to do this first, which is why it's at the top. So if you want to take another photo, this is the actual plan. And finally, the who. I mean, this whole conference is about the people at the heart of games. So you don't necessarily have to do what someone has told you to do.
So one obvious example is players will give you feedback. And if you've got a released game, you know that players will give you feedback, and some of them are idiots. But you can't ignore their feedback. Their feedback is actually valid. The way they give it might be challenging and difficult, but it doesn't make it invalid. But you need to look at it, and I've done this with, before we leave our first game, you get feedback and you go, okay, what do they actually mean? And what do they actually mean behind that? And what do they actually mean behind that? And what can I do about that thing? Because that's what will fix their feedback, not the thing that they think they want. But sometimes you get feedback like we did from someone who is being, I mean, he wasn't swearing at us or anything or giving us death threats, but he was being quite harsh, the Hooded Horse reviewer. But unlike a player's feedback, this is a guy that I know he's an expert. I know that what he says, I need to take at face value. I don't need to think, what does he mean? What does he mean behind that? What am I actually going to do? I can just go, okay, the thing that he said is the real feedback. Similarly, like if you submit a game to code or to a publisher and they come back with feedback, they probably know what they're talking about. And you really do have to take that feedback on board if you want to succeed in the industry. But you still need to do that same process of what do they mean and what is my response to that? How am I going to take that feedback? How am I going to adjust what I'm doing to answer that feedback? Whether it's a player that you have to do some analysis to figure it out, or a reviewer or a publisher who's giving you, sort of more quality feedback, you still got to do that process. And as another example, so as Anna said, we gave this talk at Play by Play, and when we asked to do it here, they gave us a longer slot and said you could expand it, you could have some more examples of other kinds of feedback or whatever. And Anna and I were talking about this and brainstorming what we could do, and in the end we were like, because we were going, we'll do it soon, we'll do it soon, we'll do it soon, and we went to Gamescom and we came back and it's like, okay, the slides have to be submitted soon. We just don't have time to do anything, because we hadn't really come up with a good way of doing it, of adding in like more examples. So we went with adding the psychology lesson and adding some more bits that we've kind of scattered through there. So, they gave us their feedback, and what we did wasn't actually what they suggested, but I hope it was still a good result for the talk.
Yeah, so I guess my takeaway would be, when you receive critique from somebody that knows their beans, tell your monkey brain that these people are not trying to kick you out of the tribe. You're not going to be rejected and die alone. They're telling you these things because they want you to succeed. We want you to succeed. And I love the New Zealand games industry because we really want each other to succeed. We're here today because we want you to succeed. And so on that note, we've got heaps of time for questions because we didn't expand the talk very much. And as promised on various places, I do have chocolates for... So we've got 10 Santé bars. So the first 10 people to ask questions will get chocolates. If your question is, can I have a chocolate? Then you can wait till the end. And if we haven't had 10 other questions, then you can have a chocolate. Okay, so go for it.
It's okay, don't worry about it.
The choices are, the red ones are dark chocolate. I think they're vegan, I'm not sure. The blue ones are milk chocolate.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I don't know if I understood this correctly, but this whole process took you how long? They were quite brief there, but how long did the whole process?
So the initial brainstorming took a week.
Okay.
The process of then deciding, like me deciding what we were actually going to do and working with the game designer, and then doing the prototyping, I think that took another 3 weeks. Yeah, and in with that, and then there was another week or so of working with Sarah, the producer, on okay, and now what do we do in terms of the full production plan? So it was more than a month that it took us. One thing to bear in mind, and this is something I have discovered very much over the process of making this game, the bigger your team, the longer this will take. Like when I made Before We Leave, I mostly made it solo. And going through this entire process would have taken me a couple of days. I wouldn't have done it as well, and the end result wouldn't have been as good. But it very much takes longer the bigger your team, because there's more communication, more checking that everyone's on the same page, and takes a surprisingly long amount of time. So if you're a smaller team, don't go, oh crap, how do we afford a month? If you get this kind of thing, it's like that will take you a lot less time.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And you spoke about moving it back to the beginning, and you had done that in the past.
Yeah.
Did you reevaluate after the whole process, again, your culture, or the culture that you had was sufficient to carry you through it?
Yeah, I think it was good. We looked at it and saw that it was good. Yeah, no, it has been a real support to us, because we can keep coming back to it and going, oh no, I made a mistake. That's okay. We're all always learning.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right.
Cheers. That was a really awesome talk. Really insightful. Thank you. In a sec. Thanks. You kind of answered my question with the who part, but I still kind of want to ask it. When you guys are given feedback that kind of differs from like what your thoughts are of the game, like how do you address that? Like, for example, if maybe someone tells you that the game's too hard, but maybe you want to make a hard game, like how do you address that kind of feedback?
It's a real balancing act, which is kind of a cop-out answer, unfortunately, but it's the truth. We have had approximately even amounts of feedback of it's too hard and it's too easy about Before We Leave. So we're like, cool, it's the right difficulty. We did make we added some more difficulty options for people that wanted to make it harder, and we added some other difficulty options and accessibility options for people that wanted it to be easier, so we did sort of do that kind of thing. So I can sort of think of two other things to say. One is, so I know I'm talking about Before We Leave here because that's the released game, so I've got like more player data about that. When I was making it, I really did feel like I was discovering what this game wanted to be. I wasn't deciding. I was like, this thing is creating itself in front of me, kind of thing. But a really large chunk of that was showing it to people and seeing what they wanted it to be. So if someone gives you feedback, and it differs to your vision, I mean, as was said in the keynote, this is a business. You've got to sell your game. If all of your or if a significant chunk of your players are saying it needs to be this, and you're like, no, I'm an artiste, it shall not be that, then good luck eating ramen noodles for the rest of your life. It's the reality.
We did have a funny experience when we gave it to an accessibility playtester, a friend of mine who's uses a wheelchair, and so we wanted him to check out how it was for people using accessibility mobility tools, and a little bit of backstory. He writes like war stories. Science fiction, military science fiction. So we gave him the game and said, can you play it and just make sure that you can play it? And he was like, yeah, it's fine, but there's not enough shooting. So, yeah, sorry. It's a non-violent game. Sorry, buddy. We're not making the game you want us to make, but at least you can play it. So.
I'm sorry if this part is kind of awkward as well, but what did you mean by yeet your producer and creative director?
Yeet them. Are you asking me what the word yeet means?
I feel like maybe I have a different understanding of the word yeet, and I'm kind of confused.
I mean, yeet is that like throw them out the window, get rid of them, ignore them.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought you meant...
We did not fight it. So
yeah, okay. Okay, yeah.
you may have missed that little part. So when we started this process, Sam, our creative director, Sarah, our producer, were still on holiday for that first week. So they weren't there. So we could just indulge in blue sky thinking involving rats and criminal acts and Joe Biden and whatever, without needing to worry about any constraints of, is this possible? Does this fit with the artiste's vision? Are we going to be able to do this in time? So just ignoring those things during the brainstorming process is what I meant. No firing
Thanks for clarifying.
Yes, you do need to yeet them to do the process, but you need to unyeet them to then continue on. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello. I have a question. So, post-harsh critique, when you're like reevaluating your work, when it comes, because you said you had like all the features. It wasn't a complete game, but you had all the features you wanted. How much would you say you like updated, changed, improved, and how much did you have to like discard, like get rid of?
I don't think we got rid of anything. It was approximately 50-50 of the system exists and it's not good enough yet, and there is not a system that needs to be in there. So we needed to add some new stuff. We needed to significantly change some stuff. But I don't think we literally removed anything. Yeah, so a lot of the feedback was, or a certain chunk of the feedback was kind of, I can do a thing, but the information you're giving me is not helping me to do it, so we had to give you more information. Or there is a system that you have to do X, but it's not fun yet, so it needs more work. So it was that sort of thing, yeah.
And there's at least one system I can think of that we've turned off for the moment, or made a non-default option, and then we can add those things back to our difficulty settings in the options menu. So,
have you ever like had to discard a whole chunk of work?
So, really long backstory. Sam actually, so pretty much immediately after I graduated, which was in 2016. So I'd been disappearing into our home office evenings and weekends, leaving Sam with the kids so I could write my thesis. Sam said, right, it's my turn. I'm gonna do what I've always wanted to do and make a game as a hobby. So he started back in 2016, had a completely different idea. He was making this game, was originally called Pax et Belli, which means peace and war in Latin, and it involved these little things that looked like game pieces and all this kind of stuff, and his vision was civilization but played in half an hour. And he worked on this and showed it to some friends, and they're like, yeah, it's all right. And he was like, that's not good enough, threw the whole thing out. And so now we have Before We Leave.
So a lot of the tech that I built for Pax et Belli, I reused for Before We Leave. Yep. And I did, like, the original thing I started making when I started doing this was a hobby was basically what Before We Leave is going to be. Beyond These Stars, sorry. But it was too big, and I was like, I'm just learning how to use Unity. This is too big. I can't do this. So I pivoted to Pax et Belli, and it wasn't good enough, so I pivoted to Before We Leave. So I have thrown out an entire game before. Yes. Just reused what I could. Yes. Yes.
Building off of the people giving feedback, how they used to give more validating feedback, but then put it more into more productive feedback, which was a lot more helpful. For those of us who don't have awesome publishers to give us good feedback, but instead have very nice Kiwi friends who want to validate you and help your hobby, how do you prime them to feel safe to give harsh feedback or help them give feedback that will be productive for you?
That's a really good question, especially in a Kiwi environment, and so the psychology student can come out. What you say is, I really need to know what's wrong with this game so I can fix it. Please tell me what you don't like. I'm eager to hear what you don't like about this game. I need to know. And I think if you frame it as, you're going to be helping me the most by giving me the negative stuff, then that can help overcome our natural diffidence and, oh, it's so great, I love it. And then when they give you that feedback, listen, don't respond. Or don't respond more than, oh, great point, thanks, and like write it down so they feel important, so they know that they've been listened to, so that it's not this kind of bait and switch. Because you can go, tell me what's wrong with it, and then they say, this is wrong with it, and you go, bullshit. That's not helpful. So, is that helpful?
Very, very helpful. Thanks so much.
Cool.
You know, keep going to the next person. You do also need to be careful if you're asking for feedback from other game developers, because they will naturally go, I think he probably already knows about that, so I won't say it. If you can, get your game in front of non-Kiwi, because we're too contracted to avoid non-Kiwi players. If you can.
Advice.
Yeah, we started building a Discord server quite early, and we had playtesters that were outside of our family, and we had playtested. Did you put some alphas up for online playtesting earlier? Yeah, through the Discord, so we could do some testing like outside of our circles fairly early on.
So I had a similar observation to the gentleman in front. It sounded like you guys had a super tough bit of feedback coming in. You were buoyed through. You handled it. It sounded like everything went near perfectly. Is there anything that you guys would have changed about how you handled that situation, or like something you do differently in the lead up to it, like as a result, or?
So we had been submitting builds to the publisher before that, and he had been giving us feedback that wasn't overly positive. It wasn't anywhere near as harsh as the final feature complete feedback, but like if we'd been more insightful, we could have realized that we were heading towards this in hindsight. But he wasn't being as full with his feedback as he could have been, because the game wasn't at a point where all the systems were in. So he would have been doing the game developer thing. I'm not going to tell you about that because I figure you probably already know about it. I'm putting words into his mouth with that, but yeah. So yeah, like if we could have listened more carefully to the feedback we were already getting, and that may have softened the blow. But that's in hindsight, as it always is.
The thing that I found as the people person, the managing director, was that people's morale really did take a hit. And so we had people kind of verging on burnout despite our great policies, so people taking some extended leave. And one thing that was really, really hard was that we didn't have a deadline anymore. And so after chatting with some other lovely devs, as it happened over dinner at GDC, lucky me, we came back and said, okay, we need to give these guys a deadline, we need to give them a time frame, even if it's not accurate necessarily. We need to give them something to aim for and some hope that we're going to be able to reach it. So being able to, I mean, I try not to be too bossy and too directive. So I think sometimes I need to just, say, we're going to get it done by this date. Even if that's not always exactly the right answer, sometimes it's better to just have some kind of framework.
That's super insightful. Thank you.
Thanks.
There's 1 minute left, by the way, so really quick.
All right, last. We've got 2 people who want to ask questions. Can you do it in 30 seconds?
Hello. Sam, towards the end there, you talked about particularly receiving feedback from players, and obviously players don't always have the most polite or articulate way of putting things, but I still think that feedback is important, and you mentioned understanding the meaning behind the feedback or what they've written. Do you or does someone in the company tend to try and reach out to those players and, I guess, understand what it is rather than just interpret what it might be?
Often, yes. I mean, sometimes you can see a piece of feedback, you go, okay, I can see that you're grumpy, but I can understand from what you've said what it is you're grumpy about, or being very polite about sometimes, and I can figure it out quite easily. But I mean, different forums differ in how you can respond, but in most cases you can respond, and players almost always love it and become much more nice if you respond to them nicely. And it can be really good to just, you go and you say, okay, can you explain more? And they do, and it's usually quite good.
Yeah, thank you.
Last question. Oh, we are hiring a community manager at the moment, so if you're interested, apply. Do you want to be that person? Go for it.
Okay, so early on in the presentation, you talked about fight or flight response.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering, you mentioned that like taking a deep breath, going to the gym, and things like that. But let's say you're in the middle of a meeting and someone drops harsh criticism on you, pausing for 10 seconds to breathe or running doesn't really help. How do you deal with it in the moment to postpone that?
That panic.
Yeah.
You can always take a deep breath. You can always go, let me just think about that for a moment. And that makes you look intelligent, stopping and thinking. I've just been recently told by someone who struggles with anxiety that chewing gum can help. Especially if it's a video call or whatever, you can chew gum, because I think that's another one of those biofeedback things. I just made this up, but I suspect it's a biofeedback thing. My body's going, oh, I'm eating. If I'm eating, I'm probably fine. There can't be a tiger around if I'm stopping to eat. So there can be things that you can do in your environment that can help you. Sometimes having a fidget toy, again, if it's or like I always I've got a hair tie. One of those squiggly ones that's not in this pocket. So I'll just sit there fidgeting with something silent, just to give you a little bit of movement and something that you can just calm down and breathe.
So that's all we've got time for. Thank you very, very much. We'll be around if you've got more questions. But yeah, thank you.